I'd like to welcome everybody to APCUG's Wednesday workshop. Today's workshop is on Linux. This is the fourth and final workshop for 2020. We're hoping that we'll be having some more coming up in the next new year. Your microphones will be need to be muted, and we'll get back with open mics later. Okay. We're going to be talking about software today. Lots of different things about software. Yeah, recording is going on. And so you're going to get a whole mess of stuff today. There's more than what we can talk about today, but we're going to try to feature what we're going to do. I'm going to start things off with a little presentation.
Okay, how do I?
And Bill, if you can kind of check the attendees and mute anybody that needs to be muted. Today I'm going to talk about not necessarily Linux software to begin with. I'm going to talk about software in general. What we're looking at is what can you do if you are someone who's interested in maybe making a switch or trying out Linux, as to what software would be the best so that you can easily use software, switch to Linux, and have no problem. The transition keys are that we have programs that are available to Windows users and to Mac users. So these are programs common to both Windows and Linux. And that makes the transition very smooth because you just go from one side into the next side and it's practically transparent. I'm going to begin with talking about browsers, and that's kind of a no-brainer because all browsers are cross-platform for the most part. So if you're using something like Firefox, which is the most common browser that is on a Linux distribution, you're not going to have any kind of problem at all. You know, you're just going to go and it's going to work just like it did in Windows. So browsers shouldn't have a problem. If you're also coming from the Chrome side of things, Linux, most of them start with a browser called Chromium, which is where Chrome came from. Chromium is the open source version, and then Google took Chromium, locked it up into their own version, Chrome. Chrome runs on Linux as well. So if you're a Chrome user, no problem. And a lot of people have browser extensions that they add to make their browsing experience better. And those same extensions are available on Linux because it's the same Firefox and Chrome. Now, granted, if you are an Edge user, it's not going to work because there hasn't been a version of Edge. But now that Edge is based on Chromium, Microsoft is working to possibly make a version that will work on Linux, but I'm baffled at that because I look and say, when you have Firefox and Chromium, why do you need Edge? But that's for somebody else to tell you why. When you're on your internet, you do lots of searching, and a lot of people get confused between a browser and a search engine because you use the browser to get on the internet. So that's Firefox, Chrome, Chromium, Edge, whatever. But then within that browser, you go to a website that is a search engine. And that is something like DuckDuckGo, which is open source's most supported one for its privacy, or Google or Bing. So if you're used to using Google, you can use it on any browser. And so when you switch to Linux, you're still doing the same search procedures you did before. So again, absolutely zero transition problem with that. A lot of us now, we have done a big workshop on password security, which is, like #1 that we need to stress. And if you're using any of these password managers in your Windows world or Mac world, they're also in the Linux world. I personally use Bitwarden, and so does Kenneth Toubaugh, who did the workshop. I used to use LastPass until I switched, and the RoboForm, they all work on that. So if you've got everything already set up in either of those, you move to Linux, they're still set up. No problems doing that. If you want to talk about internet storage, again, because we're talking about internet is universal. And as we learned many workshops ago, that most of the world computers are running Linux. You're just using a Windows box to get to these servers. So if you're already using services like Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, you can still access them through the internet, or Dropbox and Google Drive both have clients that will install on your Linux and show up, in your file manager or even on your taskbar. Another one that I use is called pCloud, and it does the same thing. So you can use it on Windows, and then when you go to Linux, it's the same thing. You just have to log in and you're going good. So that means that all of your files that you have stored up in the cloud, you can access them through Linux with no problem. When we talk about communications, the recommended program that I tell people who want to have a client on their computer, like the old days of Outlook Express, they use a program called Thunderbird. And with Thunderbird, you install it on your Windows computer and you download all of your mail to your computer. Thunderbird is also found in Linux, and so you install Thunderbird on Linux. If it's not already, it is usually already in your Linux distro as the default email client. You just set it up to get your mail, and there it goes. Of course, if you're using a web-based mail like Gmail or Outlook Mail, or in my case, I use one called Proton Mail, no problem. It's still accessing on the internet. And as a lot of us are doing, well, actually all of us are doing today, we're all on Zoom, but I'm on Zoom with Linux. You might be on Zoom with Windows. You also have a program called Jitsi, which is another program like Zoom that's open source. And so a lot of the Linux groups and people who are really supportive of open source use Jitsi, and it doesn't matter whether it's Windows, Mac, or Linux. You already know how to use it, so when you move to Linux, no problem. The same thing for Skype. If you use Skype for communicating, I use it to be able to talk to people. I'm doing tech help. There is a Skype version for Linux, and there was a one for Windows. They pretty much, I think, work the same, and so it doesn't really matter. I have a feeling, though, I've been reading between lines, and I'm thinking that Skype is going to be going away because Microsoft is moving more towards focusing on using Microsoft Teams for all of its communication, both phone and audio and video. But for right now, Skype. Now, if we talk about productivity, the things you do on your computer on a day-to-day basis, LibreOffice is a program that's cross-platformed, and many people in Windows world use LibreOffice as opposed to the paid version of Microsoft Office. But there's also the web-based Google Docs and Office Online. And so again, being internet, if you are using Windows and going to the internet for productivity tools, there's not going to be anything different the other way. The only difference might be is that you might not have a sync file on your computer if they haven't created an an application that will install. LibreOffice is, to me, one of the best, greatest programs out there because of the abilities that it has to read files. Beth sent me a question and she wanted to know about Linux being able to read. LibreOffice reads doc files, among other things. I'd love to show you, if there's time later, the huge list of files that LibreOffice can open and read. In fact, my LibreOffices were able to read some Windows files before my friends who were on Windows, because they had an older version of Office, so they couldn't read it. They'd have to get a converter. LibreOffice read it right away. LibreOffice also will save files as a doc file or other files. There's a whole list of what it can convert to. So, you know, if you have a lot of files already made in Word, they'll all open up in your LibreOffice. And in fact, when I was playing around years ago, I had a computer at school that happened to be Windows still. I could create files in Word, save them, take them home, open them up in my LibreOffice, edit them, save them, take them back to school, open them, and edit some more. So it's really, really great. And of course, Google Docs and Office Online will do the same thing. So very little. If you're already using LibreOffice in Windows, again, no downtime trying to get going in Linux. And the same if you're using the web-based Google Docs and Office Online. For audio and video, our top one for anybody, whether it's a Windows person or Linux person, is a program called VLC. If you are using it, it'll be very comfortable because that's usually the default #1 audio video program that comes with almost all Linux distros. So again, if you're comfortable using it in Windows, no problem using it in VLC. Now, I'm not saying that's, you know, you'll learn today that that's not the only program. Linux, because of open source, has lots and lots of programs, but I'm trying to show you that if you were using these on Windows, it would be an easy transition over into Linux. So I was very comfortable with the software that I was using because when I was in my Windows world, those are the programs I was using. I was using LibreOffice, and I was using Firefox, I was using VLC, and part of it was before the days of all of our cloud storage. And so when I moved over to Linux, I found it very easy because there it was: Firefox, Thunderbird, LibreOffice, VLC. Very little learning curve. And with the fact that we showed you last time that we have many ways that we can design the Linux desktop, we can design it so that it feels very, very comfortable. We've had it where we've given people Linux computers, and all we've done sneakily is say to them, this is kind of an updated Windows, see how you enjoy using it. And so they start using it for a number of weeks, and then all of a sudden we say, oh, by the way, you're really using Linux. And they go, oh, no big deal. My second part of the presentation, continuing with what I've talked about before, about how Linux is like cars. And we talked about all of that with the different distros and the different desktops, but I got a new angle that came up to me this week. Linux is like cars as car parts. Now, with car parts, we have specially developed parts that are supposed to be used on specific models of cars. We have the Mopar that goes with the Chrysler cars, and Delco with General Motors, and Motorcraft with Fords. So if you had a specific model car or manufacturer car, you usually use those specific parts. And if you try to do a Mopar cart on your General Motors, it might not fit and work right. And the same thing if you tried to do a Motorcraft part on your Mopar, things wouldn't kind of go right. and fuel sources. You know, I'm just listing the three main ones that we have right now: gasoline, diesel, and electricity. And I'm going to talk that the electric car is 100% electricity, not one of these, you know, hybrid, totally electric. And we know that there's a real problem. I can't take my gasoline engine car and pour diesel into it. And you're not supposed to pour gasoline into diesel. That's why the gas pumps have different sizes, so it won't fit. And of course, if you have an all electric car, then you can't use diesel or gasoline. So what I'm saying here is that in the car world, we sometimes have limitations that we are required to go specifically and get certain gas and get certain parts. In the Linux world, that relates to the software packages. And we have a number of primary packages, just like we did with the parts for the car. And we've got a DPKG package, an RPM, a Pacman, and a zipper. These are specific software packages that have been designed to install software on your computer that goes with certain distributions, such as Debian, Red Hat, Arch, and OpenSUSE. And so just like with the parts, I'm a Debian person, and there we talked, Sharan showed you that whole list of Debian, went to Ubuntu, went to Mint, and all of those family. Anybody who's a Debian base could use the Debian package. But if I'm a Debian person and I try to install a software that was an RPM package, it's not going to work. Same with, you know, Pacman. So that's something different than the Windows world, because Windows only has exe files. And so everything will install. But with Linux, you got to remember, are you a General Motors or whatever? Are you an electric car or are you on a diesel car? But it really doesn't matter, because in many of our software, there would, let's say, 4 different versions. There's a version for the debbing package, like a deb package. There's a version for the RPM. And so all you have to do is look at the list and say, oh, I'm a Debian, I want that particular one. Now, gas stations for fueling. Now we'll talk about regular gasoline. And around here and around your place, you probably have a number of different gas stations. In examples, I've got listed the BP, British Petroleum, Chevron, Exxon Mobil, Shell, Sinclair, and Speedway, which is kind of based out of Ohio, Marathon. These all have gasoline, and my gasoline car, I can go to any of these stations and use their gas. So when you're on a big trip, like we used to do before 2020, driving down the road, you had your choice. You could go to a specific station because you liked it, or, okay, I'm getting low on gas. There's the next exit. There's one of these. I can stop and get my gas. Linux is the same way with software. As we talk about software, you're going to probably hear that, like with a browser, there are many different browsers that do the same thing. We've got Firefox, Chromium, Chrome, Opera, Vivaldi, Brave, Microsoft Edge. They all do the same thing. But as people test drive, they find out which one do they like the best. And they use it. They can use any of them. And so we have software we're going to talk about today and in the future, that a particular kind of software, like a word processing program, there are probably 6 or 7 or so different versions that I can use. One might be created for a specific desktop environment, like we talked about last time. But if I'm on a different desktop and I like that program better, as long as it is the right kind of package, I can use it on my computer. And so a lot of times you can have what we call a pure desktop and distro, where you only use the software that comes directly from them, or you have a computer that you've modified by saying, I'm going to take the best software that I like. And why do we have all of these different softwares? Remember when I talked to you about recipes? People have recipes and other people say, I can make it better. And so you take the recipe and you make it better. I can take that word processing program, I can take that video player, and I can make it better because I know the recipe. So the confusing thing is they're the same, but they're different. They're different, but they're the same. And so sometimes with Linux software, it kind of drives you crazy because there are so many choices. So for now, that's kind of all that I have to share to set things up. We're going to hear a lot more about software from Orv and from Sharan. And so I'm going to shut myself down and turn things over to Orv.
All right, thank you, John. Early on here, John and I were agreeing about how tough it was to prepare for this workshop because as he mentioned, there are so many choices. I'm going to run through a few, and Sharan's going to run through his list, but there are many, many other categories that we won't mention. I'm sure you'll discover them. All right, John, I'm going to share my screen, and with luck, I will get the right screen here. How's that look, John? I got it on the right screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So, start with a few categories of applications. I'm going to go through text editors, just mention them very, very briefly. My notes up here. Okay, Notepad Plus is a clone of your favorite text editor in Windows. Originally, it's actually written for Windows, and they note that the Linux version installs on top of their version of Wine. Wine is an acronym for Wine is not an emulator. It's a Linux program that's what they call a shim. It translates Windows system calls to Linux calls and vice versa. So when you run a Windows program via Wine, it thinks it's running on Windows. Very popular. Kedit and Kwrite are provided with KDE Plasma. They're written from the same Qt library, so they have a very similar set of features. All of these editors are very, very versatile. Gedit is the one that comes with GNOME, which is provided by Ubuntu and some of the other distributions. And I'll talk about Nano very briefly, which is not a GUI text editor. So there's a picture of Notepad Plus, and this one is in fact running, the screenshot is from running on Windows, but it will run on Linux. All of these text editors can be language aware. If you actually are writing programs other than just a text file, they will flag it in colors. This is Kedit, and I noticed this is actually running on Mac OS. The people who wrote the libraries for a lot of the KDE Plasma stuff, the KADB company, ported their libraries over to Windows and Mac OS. So many of the applications are multi-platform. And I noticed this one here seems to be running on Mac OS. And here's Gedit, which I believe stands for GNOME Edit. And you can see he's pulled up, this looks like a text file that's related to Nginx, which is a web server. And you can see the colors are different depending on whether it's a variable or a comment or something. This is Nano. At some point in time in your journey into Linux, you'll find yourself needing to edit a text file, and you're in the command line. And there are quite a number of command line text editors, ranging from user indifferent to user hostile. And this is the most user-friendly one. This is called Nano. It's pretty easy to get going. And it's provided on almost every Linux distribution. I won't subject you to VI. VI is the, well, it's not user hostile, it's more user indifferent. It has a learning curve. Its main advantage is that it's found on every Linux and Unix box in the world, bar none. So the next category I'm going to talk about is CAD, computer-aided design. And I'm showing 4 here: FreeCAD, LibreCAD, QCAD, and KiCad. And again, many of these are multi-platform. And CAD programs are kind of, they're in that category of program like Photoshop. You have to live in them to get good at them. This is not something you'll pick up in an hour of playing with. So if you're going to pick a CAD program, make sure it has the feature set that you need, and they all are very multi-feature, lots of bells and whistles. This is FreeCAD, and it looks like it's running on Linux. Here's LibreCAD, which is a 2D CAD program. This is QCAD. I think I played with this in the ancient history. I liked it a lot. What I've used lately in my ham radio stuff is KiCad. It is a schematic editor, among other things. You lay out your components here, put the wiring, the power and ground. Then there are other modules that let you design the physical board, how big it is, where the components go, the connectors on the edges, and it will actually route all the wires for you. When that's done, it will generate something called a Gerber file. Gerber was an early major printed circuit board manufacturer, and they had a standard for importing configurations. This will generate a Gerber file, and you can email it off to a PC board vendor now and get 2 or 3 prototype boards back in just a few hours. Mine aren't nearly this sophisticated. I'd be kind of embarrassed, but I'll show you what I've done. There are tons of astronomy and planetarium type programs out there. Celestia is multi-platform, and K-Stars comes with KDE Plasma, and it is also multi-platform. It also comes on Android as K-Stars Lite, and I've had that on my phone, and it's pretty cool. You can start it and hold it up to the sky, and it will label the stars that are visible in the sky where your phone is looking. It's pretty cool. Here's Celestia. I've loaded it and played with it a little bit. Has everything you think you need. Here's K-Stars. Oh, I forgot to mention the K-Stars for Android, and I think maybe it's built into all of them. It has telescope and camera control. So if you want to track a star as the Earth moves, it will move your telescope to stay centered on it. And here's my K-Stars. I took a screenshot. I took this yesterday at about 11:30 in the morning, and you can see the sun is up in the upper left. So obviously you couldn't see these stars because it's daylight, but it shows you where they would be and where the moon is in this case. I don't sew and I don't knit, but I thought this was a neat category. KX Stitch, Krusty, and I want to call that Knitter. Who knows what it's called? It's probably called Knitter. Here's KX Stitch, and again, all of these are multi-platform. You can start with them on Windows, and if you're into sewing and your sewing machine is programmable, you probably use one of these. the nice thing is all your files would port over to the same program on Linux. This is KX Stitch. You can import an image. It'll pixelize at that, and you can color it as you want. Here's Krusty for cross-stitching. Kind of neat. Again, the similar thing. You can plot where you want the various colors to go. And this one, I found this one, Knitter. It tells you how much yarn you need and how the stitches should go. At the end of this, I'll show you the website I found these on. Genealogy, Ancestris, and Gramps are the two that I'm going to talk about. There are a number of other ones. Here's a picture of Ancestris. It runs on Java, so it's naturally multi-platform. I mentioned before, Genealogy has a common import-export file format. The Latter-day Saints developed it many, many years ago when they were doing genealogy on mainframe computers. In any case, every genealogy program can export and import GEDCOM files. Or maybe it's GEDCOM. I think it's GEDCOM. So I run Gramps, so I exported a GEDCOM file out and imported it here, and it hung on 19%. That's probably because it had 6,300 people in it, so I wouldn't hold that against it. But this is pretty easy to get going. I only played with it for a few minutes. I found this on a site that rates Linux software, or software in general, I guess, and under family history software, that Gramps got their highest rating, and I was gratified to see that since I've been using it for, I don't know, since about 07. Here's somebody's screenshot of Gramps. Looks like they're selected events, birth events, all these people. I'll have to look at that. I've never looked at that field. Here's mine. This is actually my family, started with me on the left, and it goes much farther off to the right. I said I had 6,300 people in a database. Only about, I don't know, 11 or 1,200 of them are direct ancestors or descendants of me. Others are less direct. Both sides of my family have been in North America for a long, long time, so hence lots of relatives. This is the site that I found so much good stuff on with a focus on desktop applications. Write this down, linuxlinks.com. It is, I explored it a little bit. It's laid out very, very well. Lots of good recommendations. Okay, so let me see what we can do here. Let me close that out. I've got my text editor here. There's KDE, or Kate, I'm sorry. What have I opened recently? Oh, here's a chunk of Python code, and you can see it codes it. This is actually from Gramps. I just looked it up. If you want to keep it open, you can open new one and type, this is text. You can also do things like tools. Let me see. I can capitalize it all. I thought I could capitalize it all. Oh, capitalize the first letter. Oh, that's pretty cool. Text, oh, make it uppercase. Yeah, there. Stuff like that. Now when I go to close it, it says, are you sure we want to throw that away? So that's that text editor. This is KDE Plasma, and it's got a shortcut for launching programs, which is Alt F2. And I'll just type in gedit. And there you go. Very similar, a little scarcer in details, but you know, it's got all the good stuff. There. But it's available and you can play with it on GNOME. Or And the text, nano. Let's see. Host file. So there's my host file. And you can see it's just a regular text editor. You notice the red flag that came up says it's unwritable. That's because this is a system file and you have to have root privileges to edit it. And I'm just a plain old user at this point. And it says down at the bottom, Control X to exit. So this one's a pretty easy text editor to get going. The reason these are valuable, if you run more than one, if you end up running more than one Linux computer, and you will eventually, you'll want to edit something on one from the other, and you can remotely log in and text edit at the command line. I do a lot of that. I'm sure John and Sharan do too. What else? What else did we have? Oh, I've got my my Gramps here, Genealogy. There's the chart you saw. I can do a list of families. I can sort them by, you know, this is the father, the mother, and the two children. I can double click on it and pull it up, and I can create a new family from existing people. Let's go down here. Let's go. Oh, there's a list of people sorted. You can search by last name, first name, gender, birth date, anything like that, and sort them. You could do something like generate a graphical report. Let's see. And here we go. Fan chart. I don't want to go 6 generations. There we go. Shows me, my parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents all the way around. And this is a PDF. You could mail it to someone. And I've done that quite a few times. Also, I do run a, you know, like a hobby server out in the cloud, and you can import web pages in a couple of formats and put them out there. And that's kind of useful because when I put the web pages for people out there, the descendants and ancestors, Google will spider across them, browse them, and index them. So other researchers who do a Google search for any one of these people will be directed to my web page, and it'll have my email address on it. You do have the option of marking people private if they wish, and you can automatically mark someone who's still living private or someone who's younger than a certain age private. And that's what I'm going to say about that. John, do we need to go into LibreOffice, or can we skip that one?
It's optional. Yeah, it's optional. We might come up to it later if somebody asks about it, since it's not specifically Linux, but.
Okay. KDE Plasma has what you would call a start menu. It's called favorites. And I put the programs I use the most on it. Let's see. And you also got all the other applications. I've got some ham radio what do I have under ham radio? Oh, a satellite tracker. Now that's of limited usefulness. Let me go back to applications. I got my electronics. All of these are put in there from KiCad. Graphics viewers. Let me show you GIMP. GIMP is the open source sort of equivalent to Photoshop. Actually, let me do it this way. It's easier. I'll open this is Dolphin, which is the file manager, which I talked about briefly last time. Very, very versatile. I have a picture. Oh, let's see. Yeah, here. I'm going to open this up. If I double click it, it just opens up in GwenView, which is the default photo viewer, and it has quite a few editing capabilities. But if you right click on it, you can see the default as GwenView, or you can open it with all of these things. I'll open it up with GIMP. And there you can see a cat walking across our driveway. The motion sensor, the security camera caught it. But this is how you would do a lot of editing with GIMP. And I don't claim to know it very much at all. About the only thing I ever do is correct levels. Old photos, especially older color photos, will drift in color, and this one will correct them. I don't know if it's going to correct this at all. Nah, it didn't. But anyway, you can do all sorts of interesting things with photos here. Photoshop is another one of those programs that you have to spend 2 or 3 hours a day to get really, really good at. GIMP is the same way. It has about a 95% overlap in features with Photoshop. And I believe there was original, I don't know if it's still around or not, there was a version of GIMP where they tweaked all of the menus to look like Photoshop, and they called it GIMP Shop. I don't know if that's still around or not. Let me quit out of here. I think that's all I'm going to want to demo, John. Why don't I turn it back to you? We can go back and forth if we need to, and alternately share things. But let's let Sharan go.
Okay, Sharan, if you want to share your screen and give us some good information.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So, all right. Well, let's see, where are we at? You know, this is the advantage, disadvantage of going last. Advantage is you get to have the last word. The disadvantage is the first two speakers cover a whole lot and don't leave a lot for me. But I will talk to you about a few things that certainly, you know, are available both in Windows and Linux. But there are a couple which are not available on Windows. However, the Linux versions are so slick and pretty, I'll show them towards the end. So what you see right now is my desktop out here. And as I explained last time, you know, this is a slightly older version of Ubuntu. I wanted to go the full 4 years, 5 years with it, just to see how long their full long-term support works. It does keep reminding me to update to the latest one, and I didn't want to do it this morning so that there wouldn't be any glitch today for our presentation. But I also typically, you know, at work, we have to use both Linux and Windows. So I switch between the two. At home also, the family has Windows and Mac, and I have my favorite Linux out here. But with so much demand on my time, and now that Linux has matured, I found that there's a lot of choices where I can install ready-made applications for both environments. What I do usually is I use this, if you look over here, Ubuntu comes pre-packaged. What looks like a very nice briefcase with a little A on it is the Ubuntu software. So if you click on that, you will actually see a window open up oh, not responding. I'll just say wait. And it must be someone's doing something on my network here, probably streaming some high-def movie. That's why it's slow. But we can always come back to this a little later. So let's go to the installed versions of whatever I've got. So let's go back here and then click Show Applications. There we go. So what you see out here is something which manages my applications. And these are all the stuff that I've installed from that Ubuntu software window that you saw a little earlier. And it's in alphabetical order. And to the right are these little buttons out here so that it'll march through in alphabetical order. At the bottom here, you see frequent or all. So these are all the ones that I use. And even if I've used it only once, if I click on frequent, then those buttons have disappeared. And it now shows you these are the ones that I use very, very often. And most of these are all also available on Windows. This particular one is, of course, not Windows. This is the Ubuntu Automatic Software Updater. So I'll get to that later. And in the past, I used to use TeamViewer to run remote desktops on Windows and also Linux boxes. And somewhere about maybe a year ago, they started demanding money, thinking I'm using it for commercial. So I found AnyDesk, and I switched to AnyDesk, which was formed by the same team that used to do TeamViewer, and this is available both on Windows and on Linux. It works quite well. You've already heard about Chromium. I have two slightly different versions of it for different reasons. But if I fire up the Chromium browser, which I actually already have out here, I've got it already running. And this is how I logged in and then clicked on the Zoom link, and I'm here presenting before you. This is the Ubuntu software that does the update. Here's the Zoom itself. As you can see, I've got Zoom running, and that's how I'm presenting. So AnyDesk to switch between different platforms, Chromium, and I have the same bookmarks on any other work-related desktop or home, out here, Chromium, so I can seamlessly move between those two. Of course, I can tell where I am because the look and feel is slightly different. But for all practical purposes, 99.99% of the time, it's the same actions, same plugins, same everything, same password, everything that goes on. And then same Firefox as well. I use Firefox and Chromium. As you can see, if I put out here, it tells me, oh, I do have a Firefox browser. And oh, by the way, I was on AnyDesk this morning just to check to see if there are any updates. I click this back again and it will go away. And then we'll be back to our applications right here. Okay, now the first one that nobody has mentioned before, which is great, is, I don't know how to pronounce this, Calibre. And this is software. Let me fire it up so you can see what it looks like. Calibre is a software that I use to read EPUB books. So I have the same software on Windows. I have the same software on servers, as a matter of fact, so I can read hardware documentation manuals. Okay, there it is. Calibre is starting up. You can see, there we go. And it's a very well organized thing. And I have the same look and feel on the Windows boxes at work, or the family ones, and on the servers. So I usually pop all of my EPUB documentation, technical manuals. Occasionally I'll have some fiction, and I can just click on this, add books from wherever I like. I can go to websites that feature, oh, this is where you can do EPUB download, add it to Calibre books. I can edit their metadata. which means information about the book itself, but not like the covers, for example, downloaded but not download the books. Books that I actually have, I can convert them individually in bulk to different formats. View is another way of looking at or reading the books. Get books, make the book favorite. I can read some news also. I like this particular icon for help as well. Get rid of books from my library, look at my entire library, export it to maybe a USB drive so I can connect or take it to another machine that doesn't have that EPUB and read it. And of course, you know, this works really, really well. And it does understand other formats like Amazon Kindle and Barnes and Nobles and many others. But I usually, you know, downloaded EPUB, and it can also convert things from PDF and Microsoft Word format into EPUB as well. So it's great for publishing and things like that. So this is one common thing that you'll find in both. So let me exit out of this one and shutting down and go back to my application library. So what else do I use? Okay, you might have noticed I have a lot of audio video editors and stuff like that. Many of these are also available on Windows as well. For example, Shotcut is available, OpenShot is available, OBS Studio is available, and I'll go through many of them for you so you can actually see. Let me go back to all out here, and so we can look at many of this other, we did Calibre, we did Chromium. Oh yes, Audacity. That is something that's used for audio file editing. You know, if you do video editing, it can handle both formats, but sometimes you want to do something very, very specific. You don't need all the extra bells and whistles, but Audacity does a very good job. There's Audacity starting up, and there we go. And I like it. I think there's a newer version, but so far it's been quite useful as well. As a matter of fact, I think in the future, we might plan capsule, maybe 45-minute sessions on each one of these tools, all the video editing tools, all the audio editing tools, and they're all available on Linux as well as Windows, but we'd like to show you that some of the Linux versions are pretty slick. I always leave this little welcome splash screen up there because it has a quick help manual and forum that I can get to all the time. And then in Audacity, notice at the top, file, edit, select, view, transport, tracks. So I can get any MP3 file, for example, import it in here, and look at these cool icons. Clip all of these, stretch all of these, mark a point, voiceover dubbing out there. Look at the recording levels. It maintains the time tracking exactly. It shows at the bottom here, hour, minute, second, and frames as well. Start and end the selection. I can do it at different frequency speeds, you know, where you have, for example, symphony or opera recordings. Then you can play with all of these kind of things to you know, mix. You can do mixing. I use it mostly for clips. So I'll download a podcast, and then a certain portion, maybe a 5-minute interview with someone, I will then clip out that portion and save that, and then later I would share that with you know, my circle or group. Hey, this is what this person said. We'd all listen to it and things like that. In the past, I would use that to mix up different sounds and create a unique sound or special effects that we could add to audio video editing. So all of these familiar pause, play, everything. You can add lots of effects as well. Insert noise, insert silence, change the tone, add drums, do other things. There's lots of plugins available. I haven't downloaded because I don't need a whole lot of those, but you can get very, very fancy. You can add many different tracks together and mix them all up. Once you do that, you can play them, see what it's looked like, record external, like connect it to my USB and run a little wire to a microphone to someone sitting far away. You can scrub recordings and things like that. If you add a new audio device, you can always rescan it, and it does a very, very good job, and available in both platforms. So that's Audacity. Let me take, I had a whole list out here, so going through the list for you. Okay, so let's go back to the application stack. So what else is there that we do? Oh, Firefox we already did. All right, let me move on to the next alphabetical order. Somebody earlier mentioned LibreOffice. As you can see, I've got all the basic components of LibreOffice, the spreadsheet, the documentation, the PowerPoint slides, the little database program. Older versions and newer versions, I can maintain and run them. It actually works quite well. I again recommend that in the future, we should have one particular session on LibreOffice. It again works on both platforms. And I think, John, you alluded to it a little while ago, but I think it's worth having a session on LibreOffice and going through all the components, importing documents, creating documents, exporting documents. And it's pretty fast, pretty good, works quite well. Let's see, let me fire up one particular, yeah, let's just do this spreadsheet thingy. And then it's called Calc. And wait for the little circle to finish, and we'll see a little screenshot out there. And you'll see the same kind of thing on a Windows platform as well. Okay, here we go. It did the splash screen and should be coming up shortly. There we go. And of course, like all my utilities, I keep this tip of the day on every time it comes up with something new, and I say, okay, yeah, that's cool. And here's all these, you know, spreadsheets kind of thing, highlighting bold, column, row stuff, every kind of things, formatting a cell. So everything is there and available. So there's your LibreOffice. So that's next on my list. Let's see what else can we talk about. So let's go a little further. We did that. By the way, live patch here, it's not a Windows thing, but this is something that I run on my Ubuntu, and I have a little icon out there. This checks for updated versions of everything, both Ubuntu and software I've downloaded, and kind of make sure, all right, there's a new version, it informs me, and I say, yeah, go ahead and update it. So it does all of that for me. Some more video editing software. OBS Studio is very, very powerful. It's actually great for taking care of broadcast. If you have like a video or audio podcast that you do, you can fire this up. And again, it's available in both Windows and Linux. Very, very near identical look and feel out there. And it has an awful lot of great features. So let's wait for that to pop up. There you can see, again, very familiar interface. You know, you can record whatever you have, play the recordings live from here. All sorts of configuration stuff, collect scenes so you can intersperse them while you're doing broadcast stuff. So it's very much, you know, like you're in a TV studio or something like that. Very rich set of tools that you can have. Scene switcher, output timer. You can actually automate a lot of things, run scripts and everything out there so that it will you can stream the video output to anything. If you noticed out here at the bottom, this microphone, it's moving. So it's actually live and running, and it's monitoring my voice. It'll tell me the green zone, the yellow zone, distortion, decibel levels, start streaming, start recording, studio mode, all sorts of stuff that it can do. So there's OBS. Again, if you're an audio video file, you'll enjoy this software, and it works quite well. I noticed it works slightly faster in Linux than it does in Windows, but again, it depends upon your platform. More audio video stuff. OpenShot is again available on both platforms. Why do I have so many audio video? Because each offers you know, some pros, some cons. And many of them have a built-in features that I find easier. You can do the same thing in other audio video editing utilities, but it's kind of like you have to contort your way different. So whatever you know you're familiar with, you can do that. Here we go, OpenShot Video Editor. Its user interface is actually nice. I was asked by a bunch of, they're like journalists out here in Michigan, and they actually report on a lot of events. They take their own video and audio, and then they bring it to their computer, and they complain to me that we have to pay literally hundreds of dollars, almost $1,000 each year to all these proprietary, you know, whoever they are, the Photoshop or Light Studio or whatever the commercial packages are to do our stuff. So I said, well, why don't you use OpenShot? It can do everything that you want, you know, import files, create projects out here. So, okay, the North American Auto Show, that's one project. You can put it there. Within the project, you can have other projects, day one, day two, stuff like that. Export the video, and it'll ask you, oh, I support 100 different formats. Which one do you want? Of course, when you're editing, undo stuff, clear history, put preferences, add a title, animate a title, all sorts of things up there, and then audio mixer at the thing, put in transitions and effects. And I actually showed this to them, gave a half-hour demo. Half of them converted right away, and then they later emailed me, you know, you saved me $1,000 this year because I'm using. I said, you know, it's still available on Windows. So they actually, 2 or 3 of them use Linux, and the rest of them use Windows. But you know, about 6 out of the 20 converted right away. The others said, well, we already paid up, so we'll try to get our money's worth. But they found this so easy to use, and you know, all the icons and stuff like that, and you know, they've been using it very well and very happily. And I've given presentations of this. In fact, each one of these at Semco, about a 45-minute long presentation. So that was OpenShot, again available on both platforms. Let's see, what else do we have? There's others as well. Let me just move on. So everything is not just you know, video editing, although I'll slip in a few more as well. Terminal access, one very popular one is PuTTY, again available both on Windows and Linux out here. So what this does is you can use this to create terminal access to servers, and that's what we use at work. 90% of the time, pop open a terminal, go to a server, because there's no keyboard or visual display on a server. They're just little horizontal boxes, racked and stacked. All there is an Ethernet connection going in and out, and there are hundreds of them. And then we use this to connect to it. I won't connect to it right now because I have to then go through a firewall to show you how I connect to work. but PuTTY is very, very common, and it's available on both Windows and Linux. Stop motion, no, R, that's what I wanted to talk about. This is not all utilities. Those of you who do programming, all the programming languages are available. We could do complete, several day sessions on the programming languages available. More and more of them are being available on Linux, the newer stuff. And then later when they get solid, you'll find them migrating to other platforms, but they always start off here from Unix or Linux. R is a very popular one that is used for statistical analysis. It'll remind people of Python, but it's got things in there that are more suited for statistical stuff. So you'll say help topic, and then it'll give you the topic: linear regression, averaging, R-square analysis, curve fitting, all sorts of stuff. And that's the R programming languages. Let's see, what else do we have out here? I think John mentioned Skype already. We got Skype. Shortcut is another video editor. Let me fire that up. And it's available both on Windows and Linux as well. Shortcut is actually very, very sophisticated. It supports 8K monitors, the others, it takes a little time, but Shortcut, when it comes to supporting the latest and greatest video hardware, it's got everything in there. All sorts of things. It can support all sorts of interesting, high-res monitors, like I said, 8K, many other things. And it's kind of similar to Broadcast Studio and others, but it's quite sophisticated. Here, take a look at video mode. And you can see it covers everything. It also covers international video formats like PAL, which is used in Europe and Asia, NTSC, which is used to be in France, but I think they've also changed over, and ultra high def, different frame rates it can support. It can do widescreen, square, vertical, all sorts of, or you can even customize it to any way you like here. So I haven't upgraded to the latest one, but in the latest one, they've got 8K ultra high def and even higher out there. So that's a shortcut for you. You can, if you do this for commercial stuff, you can create different jobs or projects out there and park everything there. Timeline management, it does a great job. I like this little magnet icon. It allows you to snap small little snippets of video inside that. So, and it also has all the transitions and stuff like that. You can put on the peak meter out here, so you can make sure the audio level, everything is within spec. So a very great tool. Here's your special effects out here. So you can add that, lots of things. So let's get back to the huge repertoire of stuff. And of course, Spotify, Slack. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of Slack, but this is kind of like a chat, where you can post live chat, put in video, text, and things like that. And it's a great collaboration tool. So you don't have to rely on older stuff, but Slack, you can create subgroups and things like that. What I wanted to show you is that you can easily install it by going to the Ubuntu software platform, type Slack and say, okay, I found it, here it is, click on it and fire it off. And it automates all the install for you because it knows this is Ubuntu software. It'll go to the Ubuntu repository where, and I'll show that just before we end in another 5 minutes. And there you go. It's got the thing, and you can install it and put it, and it allows you to collaborate, post. It's kind of like a modern day bulletin board. So that's Slack there. I encourage you to try it. It's free and it has a very intuitive interface. There's TeamViewer. I haven't removed it, but it's still around there. Terminal, I use this often. I've got already one out there. So I can, do command line. Sometime in the future, we'll do command line as well. So you can see I got lots of little things out there that I'm working on. And so command line, okay, here we go. Let me exit out of there and go back to my applications. And what else did I have? I've done all of these. Okay, so the last page, yes, Zoom is there, a video cutter, which is used for, all it does is it allows you to do specific clips and cuts and share it. Then you can put it in the other video editors and add special effects. Here's VLC Media. I think John mentioned it, but again, if you've used it before on Windows, you'll see the very same interface here on Linux. So folks in the audio editing world, they'll find more tools actually out here, equally powerful that you can use. And this also does conversions as well. So you can convert from one format to another, stream it, do full screen, add subtitles, all sorts of tools. What I like about VLC, it's very up to date on every format that's out there. That's why it's a great tool for conversions. So now the last one on the list. Okay, I think I've done all of it. You might also notice, let me go to frequent, Wi-Fi radar, Wireshark. The other thing I do a lot is a lot of networking, troubleshooting, and debugging. So for that, I again try to have tools at my disposal that can be used on any platform. So Wireshark you can get, and it does a great job of doing right down to bit level debugging of network packets. So with that, I come to the end of my session out here. And let me go back to Zoom. Where is Zoom? Oh, did I exit? I think I accidentally exited. Okay. Okay.
No, you just want to go up the top and stop sharing.
Yeah, there we go. Here. And come on, mouse. There we go. And as they say in Star Trek, John, you have the con.
Oh, thank you both. All right, somebody's echoing back in. Thank you both, Orv and Sharan, for sharing. I think the goal has been that you can see from many times both Orv and Sharan have said software, it works in Windows. Software, it's in both. So that's what makes it kind of hard to talk about Linux software, is because software is its own little bag. And I've been watching through, the chat box, and we keep getting questions. Does Linux have this? Does Linux have this? And the answer 98% of the time is yes, 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 because it's just software that's out there. Sharan says, we need to do a workshop on LibreOffice. I agree, but it's not a Linux workshop. It's a workshop about a piece of software, which I think is good. Judy?
I've decided to do a workshop on LibreOffice, Google Docs, the office that's online. I think that would be interesting to show different things out there instead of paying for Microsoft Word, Excel, blah, blah, blah. I thought
Right.
that might be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And all I'm saying is that it wouldn't necessarily be a Linux workshop because it's all. And I could pull up my MX Linux, which is a Debian-based XFCE, and I could show you almost all the exact same type of software, but it would be under maybe a different name because somebody has just, modified it. There's a few questions that people ask as to, what's the best one. Somebody asked about security software. Well, I've got a list here on a website of 20 different security softwares for Linux, not just for antivirus, but for network checking and this and that. It's all out there. There are some programs that might not run on Windows because somebody who designs it says, I don't want to write one for Windows, which is the same as Adobe says, we don't want to write a version of Adobe for Linux. And that's because most Linux people wouldn't pay for it. There was a question, and we're going to get to opening questions up, that said about some trouble with macros in LibreOffice. Well, macros are something that's not what normal everyday people really use. So if you really have to use macros in your business, then you may have to go the Windows route and go with the Microsoft to do that. It's kind of all about what your needs are. And I know that Bill James is sitting there, as I was talking earlier about all the programs that would be good for you to be using to make a transition from Windows to Linux. He's sitting there and saying, Chromebook does that, Chromebook does that, Chromebook does that, Chromebook does that. And he's saying, just move to Chromebook. It does all of that because everything we were talking about, a lot of it was internet stuff. And that's what Chromebook does. Judy, you had a couple questions for us?
I really feel bad because I thought I was a question person and I only got one. We talked about GIMP equal Photoshop, but a lot of us don't and wouldn't use Photoshop in this or any other lifetime. We're interested in something that's easier to use. What would it be an easier to use digital editing program other than GIMP?
Either one want to take that jump?
Well, if you want to do just basic cleanup, like cropping, resizing, and rotation in KDE Plasma, Gwenview does a great job of that. I use it for 99% of my photo editing.
What was the name of that?
It's called Gwenview. It comes with KDE Plasma, which is Kubuntu, and I think there's a version of OpenSUSE. KDE Plasma is the desktop environment.
Right.
But it's probably available in any Linux distro.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question. Thank you.
And go ahead.
Nope, your turn.
I was just going to say that in the GNOME, they might have their photo editor that does about the same thing, shot well, and the same thing for like my XFCE. There's one that they have that's Gwenview that does a good job that way too. So we have a whole list.
Yeah, there's one that is not supported anymore. I just wanted to mention Picasa.
Somebody was talking who we can't hear.
Yeah, Murray, your microphone's really bad. I can only tell it's just you talking because of my screen, but we're not hearing you.
Okay, is that any better?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat then.
Thanks. Sorry.
Hello. To any question when people say which would be a good software to do, like, graphics editing, I think Or gave that Linux links. So what I have here is Linux links. And I just went and say, oh, all right, if you go here to the right-hand side, you'll see recommended software for editing documents, internet, video, graphics. So let's go to graphics out there. And then you'll see a whole bunch of lists on what kind of stuff. If you want to do something like, just small image editing tools, you click there, and then you'll see a whole bunch of recommendations that you can try. I would just go to one of these and say, all right, let me try this, and it pretty much will do whatever you want. And like, they have all sorts of stuff: finance, games, security, web apps, utilities, system admin, education. So plenty of choices out there.
Really looking for a recommendation for somebody, because I don't want to take the time to muck around with different digital editing programs. I don't have, it's not my question, but I wouldn't have the time to do that. I prefer somebody that I knows what they're doing with software to say, hey, I'm using this one and it's really simple. Why don't you give it a try?
Yeah.
The other thing I have is my members wanted to know about LibreOffice's Writer. So I said, sure, I'll give a demo, and didn't bother to look at it, opened it up at my meeting, and I'm quite a Word user, and I had absolutely no problems with finding everything that I needed to do, except for one thing. But it dates back to Office 2003 with the drop-down menus that everybody is so familiar with. And so if I have somebody that doesn't want to pay money to upgrade to Ribbon software, they've been using 2003 for 1,000 years and it's gone away, I always put LibreOffice on there for them, and they're very comfortable using it. The one program I'm not comfortable with is PowerPoint. I'm an intuitive person, and there is a huge learning curve trying to transition from PowerPoint to, what is it, slides?
No, Impress.
Impress, that's right. And really, really, a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't track, although the Writer program was fantastic. And I just want to say to Dave Gerber, who is a huge fan of RoboForm and has used it for 1,000 years, that when he's playing around with Linux, he would be good to know that he could use his RoboForm at the same time, which is cool.
Or I thought, I'm not quite sure if one of your slides, somebody has asked about a program similar to Visio because they want to make electrical wiring drawings. And did you have something that looked like electrical wiring and stuff that was made by a program?
Yeah, the KI CAD would be considered high-end for electrical drawings. Give me 5 minutes. I'll do a little research. Be right back.
Okay. Judy, I wanted to tell you too that for those people who have adopted the ribbon, that LibreOffice now has an option that you can convert it to ribbons instead of the drop-down menu.
Okay, that's what Richard Evans just told me. And because I did check my copy just before I said that, just in case they had changed. But hey, the drop-down Chinese menus, everybody's so darn familiar with them, it's pathetic. So people who hate the ribbon, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we, as we open up to questions, remember that the best way with a large number of people, and especially people who don't have their cameras on, is that you can go to your participants button and it pops up, and over in the more there is a button that says raise hand. And so if you raise your hand, your name goes to the top of our list and we see right there who has a question. because if you raise your hand and you're on the third screen, it's going to be a while if we go back and forth. So the easiest way is to find that hit button, and then we can do programs. And a lot of this is going to be I'm reading very specific questions about very specific software, and the answers will come from us if we have any experience with it, or as Orv said, we have a couple of websites. We talked about one before that was the OSALT, OSALT, Open Source Alternatives to Regular Programs, and this new one, Linux Links, that lets you go and pick the categories and fine-tune and read some reviews about what people said. I am not an expert on the 4,000 programs that are available to me on Linux. So we'll try to do our best with sharing ideas and comments. So go ahead, Orv.
Could I say something?
Of course.
I don't think people understand how to do the digital hand, because I don't have any digital hands raised.
You don't, right, you don't have, they don't know how to do it? Yeah. See, the problem is
I can't tell people how to do it because I'm a co-host and I can't do it.
right.
I don't see that. I can see under reactions. By the way, does my microphone work now?
We still can't hear you, Murray.
Because we can't hear him. Bob G, would you do me a big favor, and would you do the steps that John's talking about and let me get something by your name here? You will pop up to the top. Okay, I've got a hand from Kurt. I'm not calling on you yet, but he knows how to do it. But I just have the feeling that other people don't, or we actually don't have any questions.
Yeah, I don't see any hand, although the one thing I could do, I can go to reactions and then there's a clap, a thumb, but not a hand.
Okay. Kurt's going to tell us how he just raised his hand. Can you do that for me, Kurt?
Yes, I am not a host or a co-host. So in the participant list, I have an option to raise my hand. If you're a host or a co-host, you can't. You're controlling things. You don't need to raise your hand.
Right. But we had somebody else just said, I'm not a co-host, but I can't find that.
Yeah, in my participant list, I see no option to raise a hand.
Okay, Bob did it too. Where do you find that option? I want it specific.
In the participant list, at the bottom.
On your name.
The bottom.
All the way. It has nothing to do with your name.
Correct.
No.
That might be the confusion.
Down on the bottom, you have invite, mute me, and lower. Well, in my case, it says lower hand. So I'm taking my hand down, and then it changes to raise hand.
Okay, so it's 3 dots on the right-hand side.
No.
No, it's just right there.
Oh, okay. Forget I said that because I can't do it. Okay, so you guys look at the bottom. Thank you.
You can open participants, Judy. It should still be there even for you.
No, it is not.
It's not.
It's not for participants?
No, it's not for hosts and co-hosts.
I'm a co-host.
Okay. In this case, I'm not.
I can raise my hand. I can raise my hand.
I can't
Oh, stop it.
raise my hand.
Thank you to Kurt and Bob G. Now
All right.
you guys all had it, know how to do it.
Okay, so Paul, you have a go.
I can tell you what the confusion was in my case. I was looking at the participants on the screen, having the gallery view. You have to actually click on the 2 heads down there and get the list. And then at the bottom of that list, you see raise hand.
Yeah, I thought that I had said click on the participant list, but maybe didn't. Yeah, you have to do the participant list on that. All right, so let's go.
Okay,
Paul,
hold on.
okay.
Orv was showing something for a question that was asked.
Yes.
You ready?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, somebody had asked about drawing schematics. I found this on Linux links, best free. This is called EDA, Electronic Design Automation. And look down here, what I had talked about, KiCad, is top rated. There's a learning curve. If you're just talking about a real simple drawing and you don't want to invest that time, where is it here? Oh yeah, you could do with a flowchart program. And some of the flowchart programs have electronic symbols in them. And I noticed I have forgotten, I've used DIA in the past. It's okay. LibreOffice Draw has it. Sharan had talked about, I think, Calibre. They have a flow that's very similar. GraphViz is command line. I wouldn't recommend that. So anyway, search for either EDA programs if you want to get into it, or if it's just quick and dirty, one of these, what do they call them? Flowchart and diagramming tools would work fine.
Thank you. Kurt, did you really have a question?
Thank you.
Actually, a comment. Notepad++ was described as a clone of Notepad. First off, technically, I don't think that's true at all. And Notepad++ is extremely more powerful than Notepad could ever hope to be. It's useful in multiple languages. It's good for troubleshooting. It's good for finding differences in files. Just a wealth of things that Notepad would never dream of doing. And it's available for Windows.
That's true. Okay, Paul Cozart, you have a question.
You're muted. Paul, you need to, there you go.
What I was trying to do the other day was to install a wireless adapter driver off a CD DVD that came with a wireless adapter. It was a USB adapter. What's the procedure for software that comes with a device that Linux doesn't automatically recognize?
If it's an exe type file, it's not going to work.
Right, I know that it didn't.
But normally, it's a plug and play. I have a wireless adapter. I just plug it in and I'm on the wireless. I have to do nothing to plug, to get that wireless adapter to work. Or if you have, any kind of problem, it's printers. You hook up a printer and they almost all work. You hook up a scanner and they kind of all work. Or
if you are in the market for a scanner or a printer and you want to know if it works, linuxprinting.org has a huge database of printers and scanners that are known to work and rated at how compatible they are. In general, Epson and HP, no problem. Brother, no problem. Canon, kind of iffy.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul, tell me again, what was it that you were trying to connect?
A USB wireless director.
A wireless USB wireless adapter.
Yeah. This one I have, it's a.
Okay. Well, let me finish the question.
Okay.
I was using an older laptop. I mean, this sucker's at least 10 years old. It was 32-bit. It wouldn't take 64-bit. So that might have been part of the problem. It did recognize it in one version of Linux Lite or Linux Mint. I'm not sure which version that I had that did automatically recognize it when I plugged it in, but the other one wouldn't recognize it. So then I tried to use the USB, the CD or DVD that came with it. Yeah, and really it was just for test purposes to try and learn the system. I've been taking old laptops and putting Linux on them and donating them for veterans. And this was one that was real old.
Yeah, I have a older laptop that I've had for many, many years, and it always had a problem with its wireless because it was a Broadcom, which wasn't as, yeah.
That's where I started. It was a Broadcom.
Right, and the problem I had was I would have to go when I got a new Linux version. We had groups that met at the library and have a big Linux install fest, and I could only get as far as installing it, and I couldn't go any farther because the Ubuntu didn't include the Broadcom drivers. I would have to go home, plug it into wired, download the drivers, and then I could unplug and be fine. It's just that there's some strange things with Broadcom. So I started carrying around all the drivers on a thumb drive so I can install. But with the plug-in one, that's why I have that plug-in one, so I can just plug it in and I'm on the internet Wi-Fi with no problems at all. But you know, definitely the older the computer, and a 32-bit definitely would probably have internal Wi-Fi problems without installing the like the Broadcom ones.
Well, part of the problem was it was a BG, and I wanted to have, you know, have an adapter in it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that if they had to use wireless, it would work for them better.
Yeah, yep. But normally with Linux, it's, you know, mostly it's just plug and play, because most of the software that's written for things like that CD probably was strictly Windows exe files, and we don't do those kind of files.
There was a Linux folder on it.
Oh,
Okay.
It's one of those go figure things.
Yeah.
Paul, don't forget to lower your hand over to Murray. But we can't hear him, so maybe he can yell.
Hello,
Okay, it's Lord.
can I interrupt for a moment? I have a question. I can't seem to get the hand up. I really like it.
Okay, did you go to the very bottom along where you have your volume or your mute your mic, and there's a button that says participants?
I
It
don't.
has like, yeah, move your mouse clear to the bottom, and you should see the microphone camera that you can turn on and off, and then you should see the chat button.
Well, all I see is all I see is like an iPhone, not any.
Oh, are you on a tablet?
Oh, okay.
I'm on a laptop.
Okay. Go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you should have a menu pop up from the bottom that has your mute button and your video on and off button, a chat box, and then a participants.
Yeah, right there.
Click
So
the participants.
I turn on the participant list.
Then go scroll all the way to the bottom of the list.
Okay, I do, and I don't see it. I don't see it.
Do you have an invite?
Is it invite, right?
Mute.
Oh, here it is. Okay, I found it. Thank you.
Outstanding.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right. Oh, over to Murray. And Murray, you're going to have to yell as loud as you can.
Oh, so my microphone still isn't working?
Not very loud.
Nope.
And is that any better?
Nope.
Okay,
But I can hear you, so say it.
Okay, well, I guess I will try another set, but we're probably going to be running out of time before I find one that works better. Maybe it's the computer.
Do you want to go ahead?
Okay, I did have a couple of comments. One of the things I wanted to do was I did mention that if somebody can do a presentation on Cinelera and whatever else you need to do to make it so you can take your video, combine it from different formats, put together chapters, and make a DVD, which probably requires more than Cinelera by itself, I'd be very interested in that, but I'm not the one to do it.
Yeah. What I suggest is, if you have ideas for workshops, put them in the chat to Judy. We have 4 Wednesdays a month, so we've got plenty of slots that we can fill, and then she'll be able to send out an email that says we have people who would like a workshop on video editing, and see what jumps out at us. But that's the best way, is to tell her, because those are software workshops.
except that for Cinelera, that is something that I'm pretty sure is exclusively Linux.
It could be.
Okay. Okay, Murray, thanks. And I'm over to Kurt again.
Yeah, I'm wondering about Murray's problem. It sounds to me like he might have more than one microphone on his system and have the wrong one selected.
That's a possibility. I do that all the time.
I only do it some of the time.
I have 3 choices. I've got 2 different cameras with mics and headset. So yeah, that could be.
Gosh, I have 2 choices and they're both the same.
And you only have 1 monitor, right?
Yeah. Oh, stop it. You know you're not supposed to say that.
I know, but you get to come back with the background that I can't do.
Okay. Over to Charles.
Unmute yourself, Charles. We still don't hear you, Charles. Unless you don't have a question.
Hello.
Hey.
There I go.
I hear you.
I don't have a question. It was a comment about something, a question that I heard mentioned earlier on in the, when you were talking about LibreOffice. Well, there are 2 about macros. Macros in LibreOffice are a lot different than they are in Word, because they're in a different language. On Word, they're in Visual Basic. In Writer and the LibreOffice, it's written in a language called Python. Two different languages, and it can be a learning curve as a result. Although you can learn it by recording macros of what you're doing, and then you do have a macro recorder, so you can learn it that way. That's how I learned it anyway. That's how I learned it about this.
Right. And again, it comes all back to, what is your needs? I don't do macros, so it doesn't matter whether the LibreOffice is the Python and Windows is that. I don't use them. It doesn't matter to me, but it can matter to someone else. So you have to go with what you want. And if the program you want, if you are an Adobe Illustrator and editor and you have to have Adobe, then you're going to go with a Windows or a Mac and pay for that because you have to have that.
Yeah, but as in that, that's an interesting point, because I converted to Linux 8 years ago, and the interesting thing is I've only found one program in everything I do that I cannot replace with a Linux program.
And can you share that with us?
Yeah, it's called Autodesk Fusion 360.
Okay.
It's a 3D modeler. You could do it in something like Blender, but it's much more difficult. So what I do is I have a Windows machine that takes care of it. It takes care of it because it also has integration with my. It also has integration with my electronic PCB board creation software. I use Autodesk Eagle, and they're connected together, and it's nice. But that it's something that I need. But if all you're doing is creating PCBs, then KiCad works very well. So that's my experience. I've only found one program I can't replace. And I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's good too. And again, I wouldn't be doing that, so that doesn't bother me. Judy.
There's a question about issues with loading Linux on UEFI-based PCs. Comments, please?
They load because many of the versions of Linux have added what Microsoft requires them to have so that they can do dual boot. I don't know if
most distros now have a UEFI or EFI, what they call the shim, and it provides the signature, signature that UEFI requires, and it's all done totally transparent to what you're doing when you install. It's automatically detected and taken care of in most distributions now.
yeah.
So there, John, you might have chosen a distribution where it doesn't work.
Well, yeah, that's possible.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing too is that with those computers, you have to turn off secure boot or it won't boot something else that's not base Windows.
Murray would like to try his microphone again. He said he has 3 Windows apps without good Linux equivalents. Murray, let's see if we can hear you tell us what those 3 apps are.
Okay, is my microphone working this time?
Doesn't work, Murray. Sorry.
Worse
you need
this,
to get,
worse
you need
this
to get
time.
a new computer.
Yeah, get a Linux computer. Oh, no.
Yeah, get a new computer.
I usually use a different.
Murray, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's coming a long ways from Canada. What can I tell you?
And there's the snowstorm, here
Yeah,
in the east.
and the wind has started blowing in California. So, all hell is breaking loose. Anyway, I'm going to ask, John talked about Skype possibly going away. Actually, I'm not a fan of Skype. I've never had success with it, but I've just basically been a Zoom kid ever since it was released. But I'm going to ask Bill to say a few words about what we did a few days ago. He wanted to try out something new with Skype, and it was quite nice. We had a really good time with it. So, Bill, can you say a few words about what we did and what we used?
Yeah, I noticed on my taskbar there was a new icon over in the notification area. And when I ran my mouse over it, it says it's called Meet Now. And apparently that's an add-on to Skype, which is a conferencing feature they've added. And so when we tried it, you send out invitations just like you would in Zoom. And it allows you to have a conference with multiple participants, as well as share your screen, have backgrounds, a number of other things that have been added. But pardon me, if you look at on your taskbar to the right over in the notifications area, you should see something that looks like, it appears to me like a watch. I can't figure out what the icon, but when you hover over it, it says Meet Now. And when you click on it, it will then launch the little graphic that says Meet Now or join a meeting. Host video calls for free with Meet Now. No sign up or downloads needed. Learn more. So it's something that's been an add-on to Skype.
Yeah, I just, to say, comment to Judy, the only reason that I use the Skype is that when I do tech support, I don't want to be tied vocally to TeamViewer or Zoom, because if their computer craps out, there's no talking. So I call them with my Skype, I call their house phone or their cell, and I can keep talking to them even if their computer shuts down. So, that's the only reason that I basically use Skype, other than just for open communications. I'm going to.
Yeah, I have John, to add on to that. I've been involved with a chat group for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. It goes back to the early Windows 98 days when we had these beta testing, Windows 95. And so this little group of mine, we would meet every Sunday via Skype. And so I still do that Sunday chat using Skype. And that's the only time I ever really use it. But it's strictly chat. We don't do the video part.
Mm-hmm.
And then he will save the chat and then send it out to the there's still a number of groups that monitor that news group. They just don't participate, but they always get the text of the chat.
Thank you. And Julia has a question.
Yes. Is there a publisher program for Linux?
Of course.
And the name is?
Scribus or Scribus.
Oh, Scribus. Thank you.
Have you used it?
Me?
Yes.
I don't publish things. But that is what we use for a couple of my groups in my regions use it for their newsletters.
There you go. That completes the answer then. Thank you.
Okay, I see if this microphone works.
Oh
hey,
my God.
there's somebody.
Hey.
There's somebody new there. Wow, Murray.
Yeah, well, that's me I decided to go to the iPad and maybe let you see my Christmas tree too. That one, the iPad, it works so much better. I don't even need earphones with it.
Yeah, well, that works.
Yeah, I've done. Well, I actually did quite a session on Scribus. It's sort of the free open source version of something equivalent to InDesign or some of those other things for doing desktop publishing. I used to publish a bunch of newsletters every month, and generally, if I'm making greeting cards and things like that, I use it because one of the things that's nice about that kind of a program is that when you put pictures and things in, they stay where they're supposed to be no matter what else you do. If you move text around, you also have a lot better control over your text, and you can do really, really fantastic things with it. But it's a different thought process you have to go through than a WYSIWYG word processor, for example. But anyway, okay, well, at least I've got something that works. I won't try that computer again for Zoom meetings.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I want to share my screen again because I've got two programs that people have asked questions about. And yeah, hey, Penguin Christmas.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah, and I have a whole set of those penguins. One of the programs and one of the ones that somebody asked about was one called Simple Scan. And I got it back to my office. There, I can see it's too small. And, oh, I'm sorry, that's in accessories. So I'll just go SIM and Simple Scan. Simple Scan is just so simple, you kind of don't want to show it. There are two programs. You can get two different versions of programs in Linux. One's called Simple Scan and the other one's, I'll get to it, whatever. But this one is so easy, and it won't work on my laptop because it's not connected to the scanner. You just click Scan and it scans. And the best you can do is to crop it if you need to before you save. But one extra neat feature on here is that I can do multiple scans and it just keeps adding pages to the single file. So I don't have to go and make scans and then use the program that we got out there that's called PDF SAM, which is split and merge. I can just add it. So it's very easy. All you can do is scan. And I have a very, very, very old CanoScan that I'm still using that works with Linux. You know, it's way old. My Windows probably wouldn't use it or let me use it because it's so old. So all I have to do is just hit the scan, it scans, and then save it. And if I wanted to have multiple pages, I just keep scanning and just keeps, you know, adding them there. So Simple Scan is a very easy to use program. I don't think it's going to find anything because I'm not connected. It's not a wireless.
What does it save as?
What would you like it to save as? Let's see. Usually an image file, which is a PDF.
Just a PDF. Okay.
Yeah.
It's built to PDF. It's a very nice little program.
Yeah. The other program, and it's one that I shouldn't share with you because some people, as long as you're doing it for archive purposes, and somebody wanted to know about ripping CDs. And one of the best programs, if I get to my multimedia, it's called Asunder. And this is the one I have used to back up all of my files to my computer so I can listen to them on there. And this program, all you do is, you know, go to the CD, it clicks all of them, and you hit the button and it converts them all in, or saves them all as, you know, MP3 files and store it up. But Asunder is the one. Now, there's a number of programs that'll do that. I used to use Audacity to copy cassettes before they went out of, you know, before I could lose them. And so you just do it. Now, of course, it does it more in real time, whereas Asunder just rips them right all off and saves them. So that's two real good programs for people who are looking for things like scanning and ripping. I was trying to think. You know, and the thing is, we have lots of different versions. Oh, wait a second, Kden Live. I'm not an expert on this one, but somebody was wanting. This is probably what most people say is the top rated video program. Are you coming up somewhere? There we go. And you know, we talked about a number of them. Sharan did one, but Kden Live, KDE program. But see, this is a KDE program. I'm running an XFCE desktop, which came with its own video editor, but I went out and got the KDE to put it on here because it is so good. And you can see that this one has room for multiple tracks, so you can have a video track, a music track, and then create an audio track. So you could take a program where you wanted to take a whole bunch of slides that you've taken pictures of your trip, put some background music to it, and then you can record what's going on in the pictures, save it all as an MP4, and send it off to people. But you know, Kden Live is a terrific program for doing that. But again, it didn't come with mine because I'm not a KDE like Orv is, but I can have it if I want it. And I think that's all that was really of the ones. And of course, you know,
the Live also works with Windows and other things. It's a cross-platform.
Right.
Well, yes. The trick is what it does. The way it does it is it loads the Qt5 libraries. So you don't need the full desktop to get the Qt library. You can
Correct.
load the library separately, and the program will pick it up and use it on the screen.
Yep.
That's how it can do.
That's how it's good.
You can run a KDE program without KDE.
Yeah. Now I'll say that I like the Dolphin browser that Orv uses, but downloading the Dolphin browser brings in more KDE stuff than I really want. So you know, if I'm going to go that way, I'm going to go all KDE. Now, somebody else has asked in the chat question boxes about software that keeps track of what you're doing and what's going on. This is a program very similar to a program that was out on Windows that has everything about my computer. And so if you had a program where, Windows does it, but, you can see that in the summary, here are all of the categories that talk about my computer, such as the CPU, the graphics card, and you can go to like the display, tells you everything about the display and what's on the memory. So, Linux has those kind of programs that tell you all the same stuff. Linux has the same kind of programs like the Control-Alt-Delete, so you get your task menu that'll tell you what your processes are running. We've got there's command lines that show it just text-wise, and then you've got the more graphical ones. So it's very hard, except, and I appreciate the fact that somebody shared that there's only one program that they can't get off of Windows, but it's all out there.
I'm the one who filled out the feedback form.
Okay, I don't think we had anybody that had a hand up.
I have a general question, so to speak.
Okay.
Some gal has contacted me as the guruette of Zoom and the Speakers Bureau. And her comment is vehicle technology has changed significantly, especially for people who only buy a new car every few years. They bought one without a CD player. And she's wondering if there would be a viable presentation that maybe somebody has done or whatever on all the ways that you can get music in your new car without a CD player. Has anybody ever given that as a presentation to their group?
You burn a thumb drive with all your things and plug it in.
Well, that was one of the ways, but she specified all of the ways you could accomplish that.
I only know two ways: thumb drive or
you can
stream
stream.
Okay, that's not what I want to hear. I want to hear if anybody has ever done a presentation on that. I know the ways you can do it. She just thought it would be interesting to have a presentation on demo of how you do it all. So I take it the answer is no.
Is she asking for one?
Yeah.
From Vernon Avenue to Uptown.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to ask you, okay? I wanted to see if there was somebody out there who had done something like that.
Never crossed my mind.
And you would think that somebody's going to volunteer, huh?
Oh, God, I guess I still have hopes of people raising their hands and volunteering.
I volunteered J.J. Johnson. Where is he?
I see him down there.
He won't do anything for me, so that happens.
So the program.
There he is.
Not true.
I know.
Think about it.
That would be a nice project for you.
I'm taking notes right now. Something here again that I might do within my club. So I'll put together something.
Ask your grandkids; they do it all the time.
Yes.
That's not the point, guys. I know how to do it. This gal wants a presentation on all of the various ways to do it.
And the other
and
problem
that's my preschool speech. I mean, what can I tell you?
One other problem too is that it's also kind of vehicle specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There is.
Forget I asked.
Oh, sorry.
Charles has his hand raised.
Yes. In respect to the what you're discussing right now, I have actually built a whole entire head system for a car. The screen, the CD, and the whole thing. So I'm trying to work up a non-technical explanation of what I did, and I'm, because it is a fairly technical subject, some of it, not all of it. Because if you want all the ways, one of the ways is actually to build a custom head, and that is very complicated. But there are a lot easier ways to get music, CDs into a, as you say, there are many easy ways.
Do we have any more Linux questions? I don't have any raised hands on my participants list.
I do.
I have one, even if I'm not on the list. Let me think. Oh, I had it on the tip of my tongue, and I guess I've forgotten it. I'll have to wait till next time.
Go ahead, John.
I had a question. The program that was the video editor that's kind of the tops is KDE N Live, L-I-V-E, Kden Live. The scanner program that is the bigger one that will do, you know, a lot more options than Simple Scan is Xsane, X-S-A-N-E. I have that on my computer if I need to do more than just a simple scan. Additional programs for ripping beside Asunder, which was on my list, but Orv also helped me with them, is that you can use a program called K3B. Again, that is a KDE program, K3B. You can do, even VLC will do some ripping. So there's a number of programs. A lot of the CD burning programs are different versions. The biggest thing that happens in terms of the different software is it's not like the quality, it's the features. That you can go from a program like K3B, which is a huge burning program, it's great, I love it, down to something that's called Xburn, a very lightweight, easy on your resources, and does the same thing, but doesn't have all extra features. And that's what's one thing that's nice about Linux, is that we have all these different ranges of programs, and pick your needs. I could be running KDE Plasma, which in the older days required more resources, on my desktop computer because it's a bigger one, but I run XFCE because I like the style of that desktop. We sometimes use XFCE on computers that are low resource, but on my computer it works real well because it's lightweight and I've got a lot of power to it. So that's part of the beauty of that. Paul, you had another comment?
Asking if there's a program that is a PDF editor program to create forms, highlight text in PDF files.
Yeah, I had that somewhere else. What I do is I create all of my stuff in LibreOffice and then export it as a PDF. That way, if I need to edit it, I just open up the doc file or the PowerPoint file, or I'm sorry, shouldn't say that word, Impress file, and then edit and re-export it as a PDF. That's the way I do it, because if I'm making a PDF, now if somebody sends it, yep, there's a few programs out there that will do that. If Orv has an answer to that, or Sharan, that oh, Orv's shaking his head, so yes, Orv.
Yeah, there used to be something, but that doesn't seem to be available anymore, that I use all the time, which was called PDFTK. That would let you reorder the pages. I mean, you couldn't do everything, but at least, you know, if you wanted to combine documents or just select a few pages from a document, it was really great, but it seems to have disappeared. I don't know if there's a replacement for it or not. It was a command line program, but I can't find it now.
Hey, John?
Yep.
I did notice that PDFTK is still in the repository for Ubuntu, so that could be used. But
okay.
He's right, it is command line. Google tells me that LibreOffice Draw can edit PDFs. So if you've got LibreOffice installed, you're done.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, you can also do it in Scribus, but it's more work in Scribus.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Also, you can do it in Writer. You can import it. You can import it into Writer, change it, and then re-export it. That's
PDF
yeah.
file?
The only trouble is the format doesn't stay right if you do that.
Yeah, I've had that kind of trouble too. That's why I said, you know, if you're creating the PDFs, just create them in LibreOffice, export them, then you can reopen the file, edit it, and export it again.
Yeah, you can do that with almost any of the Linux programs that do things like that. But the problem is, of course, that if you're dealing with a document that is already in PDF that you got from somebody else, you know, for example, I have 2 documents from our lawyer, and one was sort of just a few updated pages. Well, to add them into the original document and replace them, it would have been real easy with PDF-PK. I'll try and see if it's in the repository. Last time I looked, it didn't work, but I'll try it again.
PT, the Ubuntu has it, and so does Arch.
Okay, well, I will try. I know the last time I tried it from Ubuntu, it didn't work, but I'll try it again.
Make sure you get it from the 2004 or 2010 repository.
Yeah, well, of course, that's where I was trying to get it. Yeah.
That you might be getting a real old version.
Yeah, it might be.
You'll have library issues that cause a crash.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll try the 20. I'll use Synaptic to try to get it.
But
Okay.
Judy would tell you that once in a while getting an old version is good. Her movie maker that she uses is 2.7, isn't it called? Was only supposed to be used by Vista, and if you can still find it, it's better than what Microsoft came out later in their movie maker stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And Google is your friend. If you Google, can I convert PDFs to LibreOffice Writer? There's a couple of free services out there that will do that for you. I use that for a good, completely formatted as it's supposed to be option when I want to, somebody sends me a PowerPoint or a Word doc and PDF, and it works really well. So Google is your friend.
I know something I noticed about with Linux Lite based on Ubuntu 20.10.0 is that for some strange reason, 2 programs don't work. One is VLC, which I've never had a problem getting it to work before. The other one is Chromium. I can't get Chromium to work. I have to use Google Chrome on Linux Lite version 20.10 based on Ubuntu 20.10.
Did you get it from the repository, or did you go out to get it?
Oh no, I got it from a repository.
Yeah, well, there was a big stink with Linux Mint because they were going to stop with it, and part of it was a philosophical thing because of what they were doing with some, you know, this requiring it to be a snap package, and they didn't want it to be, and so Mint was going to manufacture their own version of Chromium so that Mint users would have it. When you do it through the repositories, you are at the mercy of the store manager and what they decide to include and not. And so that's why you know, you might find something not there that might be in somebody else's.
Well, it's there. It just doesn't work. That's it. I mean, both of them are there. They just don't work when you install them under Linux Lite. They work under Xubuntu, but not under Linux Lite.
I got an interesting situation that I noticed in the Lite version. They don't load a package called GStream Bad. Okay, GStream Bad has a bunch of codecs, but that are sometimes acquired as come in as what they call binary blobs. And if you don't load GStream Bad, things like Chromium, sometimes things like Chromium and VLC will fail.
Okay, what is that? G3 what?
It won't play anything.
Yeah, but what is it you have to load?
GStream
Bad. It's a package.
GStream, what's the last 3 letters?
BAD.
Oh,
Put it
BAD.
put it in the chat box. John.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you and Orv and Sharan are going to be sending me the list of software that you talked about and demoed.
I would say that we can direct them to do that so that there's a listing of things. I also
out to everybody, and
right.
that if you in particular, you said that there's this program that you really like, and there's this one that is the light version, and then there's another program like you're editing that's that heavy duty. Could you add those notes on your list? Because you know, for people who just want, like me, to not delve into things that do stuff that I'm not interested in, I would be interested in using the one that you said, well, this is the one that I like, but if I want to do more, then I use this one. So could you kind of make those notes as you put your list together?
We can try to do that. I do want to also say that I have to be on my screen. Judy is on one corner and I'm on the other corner, and say to her, she keeps saying that Google is your friend. I'll keep saying that DuckDuck is where to go. So DuckDuckGo is where you got to go. I do want to say that if you have ideas for future workshops in general, send those to jtallure@apcug.org. If you have suggestions for Linux type workshops, send them to me at jkennedy@apcug.org. We're always looking for things to do, and then we find people to do it. Judy?
2 questions. Carl Kalenda has a question.
Yep, I was going to get to him next.
Okay, I've used a optical scanner reader. In fact, some of the HP printers would come with it years ago to convert PDF to a Word document. The only downside has been is if the PDF has various different font sizes, then the conversion is kind of strange.
Yeah.
Kurt has another question or comment.
Muted. Something comes upon me as sort of obvious by omission. You haven't talked about a Zoom client, and in particular, I'm wondering if any of you have successfully built a Zoom client for a Raspberry Pi running in the Raspberry OS.
I've got a Zoom client on my computer, but I have to go through the web to start it up in the as the host. Anybody?
That's not a problem. It's avoiding taking and running Zoom within the browser.
Okay, I myself have not yet done it on the Raspberry Pi, but I will. I know that the people in our Linux and Raspberry Pi group have all done it. So I know it's possible, but I will have to take a look. Well, one of the things that, of course, what I'm running on my Raspberry Pi now is Ubuntu Mate. And I don't use the Raspbian OS. I'm using Ubuntu Mate. I like it better. So maybe that's what they're using, but I will let Judy know if I am successful in how I did it.
Yeah.
Anne Marie, what group are you with that you have these special interest groups that are still meeting?
This is the Victoria Computer Club.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have Zoom meetings. I'd say we have probably at least two or three a week.
Well, I'll be there in January.
Okay. Yeah. George Bowden. Contact George Bowden at the or Dorothy Cushaway. They can give you they can put you on the mailing list for the Zoom meetings that occur.
Good. I want to respond to Donna's question because it's an important one as we sum up these 4 workshops. You have options if you want to test out test out Linux, and you're not comfortable with putting it on your computer. Yes, you can put almost any Linux onto a thumb drive and boot it up to your computer. Doesn't do any changes to your computer. We also learned that there's a program besides the distro watch that we showed you where you get all the information. I think it's distro test. And when you go to distrotest.com, you can try out any Linux through the browser type and have a feel of what that version of Linux works on. So there is definite ways that you can do it. Donna, usually if you do it on a thumb drive, your computer has a keyboard that pops up a boot menu that just says, what do you want to boot it to? You don't have to go into the BIOS and change the boot order, but you can just say, this time I want to boot it to the thumb drive. So yes, there's ways to do it.
A lot of people in our group are using containers to do the same thing. Whenever they want to try something out or experiment something, they use a container. Docker is one, but I think that's becoming less popular. But I mean, I know there's one guy must have 25 containers with 25 different things he's trying out.
Uh-huh.
And they're very safe and lightweight.
Yeah.
I have a question for Paul. Yes, that Paul, it's nodding his head there. What group are you with?
Unmute.
Unmute yourself.
With Sterling Heights.
Okay.
One of my groups.
I think what you are doing with your laptops and giving them to veterans is an absolutely outstanding idea. And what did you do? Call your local VA center and say, hey, can I do this?
I called an organization called I think it's called Returning Vets. And it's 11 Mile in Gratiot. And I think it might be Fraser, Michigan.
We have a similar thing in Victoria. It's through one of the churches, and but it's more for desktops. And they put Linux on them and make them available to people who can't afford to buy a computer.
This particular organization helps the returning vets with obtaining housing and furniture and meals, you know, inside their facility. They're strictly nonprofit. I worked in real estate for 41 years, and I worked for a company that had, well, they have now 12 offices, and I helped with computer support. So I sent out an email to the company, and I wound up getting about 7 old laptops donated. And the older ones, I put a small SSD drive in it so that it runs fast enough to still be usable. And I try to stay with them where they have a video camera in them also.
I have 3 of my beloved Toshibas that, you know, I've moved on from, that I could certainly do that with, plus a Windows 10. So thank you for mentioning that. Appreciate it.
And you know, the ones that had Windows 7, I did put a clean install of Windows 7 with all the updates, you know, which it takes a while, but I'm retired, you know, like a lot of us are, and bored to tears. So I installed Windows 7, got all the updates and everything else, and then put a dual boot with Linux.
Yeah, the trouble is with Windows 7 is that you're doing the community a disservice if you connect those to the internet.
Right. Well, that's what I put on. Yeah, I put like a little flyer on them. You know.
Don't connect Windows 7 to the internet.
Yeah. Recommend that you do not use for internet connection on Windows 7. Strictly Linux.
You can take any of those machines and put Windows 10 on them as long as they're properly licensed.
Yeah, except that I have a Toshiba laptop, which I could put Windows 10 on it during the, you know, the pre-trial insider version for about 6 months, but then they made changes, and I tried every year, but it still doesn't work. Something happens that it creates 15 instances of every piece of hardware, and it soon runs out of interrupts, so you can't connect to the internet anymore. And I've been, you know, the last thing was just before COVID. They told me that if I took it to a Windows store for free, they would try to get it to work. But you know, there's no Windows store in my town.
There's no Windows store anywhere.
Well, I mean, there probably are. There were in Ontario. There was one in Vancouver, but you know, for me to go to Vancouver, it's over $100 to take the ferry over there and back. Oh. So, and I could have done it visiting my son in Newmarket, Ontario, except that of course I can't go there anymore.
Yeah.
Over to you, John.
Okay, this has been great. When Judy first approached me about this, 6 months or more ago, I hem-hawed around saying, I just don't know, because there are so many options and so many choices and how we could narrow this down. But thanks to Orv and to Sharan for really helping out, we've been 4 different workshops, 8 hours worth of plus, and possibly some future ones. We definitely want to do for some experienced users, we definitely want to go into teaching about command line, because using the command line, things work so much faster and smoother and easier and better, and it's not that, not that scary. If you have workshops, Jay Talur at APCUG. If you have suggestions for future Linux workshops, Jay Kennedy at APCUG. Judy will be sending out a follow-up as soon as we can all get our lists done. It's going to be a challenge because we talked about a lot of stuff. Upcoming, Bill James will be doing his home automation security in 2 weeks. In January, we have open roundtable. We want everybody. We want to fill our Zoom room up. Everybody can join and talk about what we're doing for 2021 now that maybe the hump is coming. We will have a workshop on drones. We will have a workshop on Wi-Fi routers and modems coming up. We have a workshop on Macs. We have, there was something, VTC coming up.
Right, we have a workshop on backing up and our workshop on various and sundry
word processing,
Google Docs, etc. And John is too kind to say I hounded him to do the Linux thing until I finally was so embarrassed I couldn't hound him anymore. And
she pleaded and begged.
I pleaded and carried on, and I got in touch with Orv, who I have known for 16,000 years, and said, hey, would you like to participate? Because John said he'd do a panel, and Sharan volunteered. So, hey, John, we did get 1 volunteer, so that was good.
Yep, so appreciate all that. If you have anything, send it to us. Otherwise, we're going to wrap things up because I got to go upstairs and see how much snow I've got upstairs. It wasn't going to be a lot.
This has been a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the numbers that have turned out for this. We had no idea how many. And so I hope that some of you people who are new to this concept of Linux are going to give it a try. Any of us on the panel will be glad to provide you help. Get you in touch with somebody else, maybe it's closer over Zoom, and do whatever we can. I think we'll call it quits.
Had his hand up.
Who did?
Bob.
Howard.
Oh, Howard. Oh, I didn't see it. I was watching the other thing. Howard?
He has, never mind, thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up. Okay. Or if anything last?
No, it was a good presentation, and I was looking over that site, that linuxlinks.com. I'm going to refer to that going forward because there's a lot of multi-platform software in there I did not know about. And I'm going to review it.
Yeah, there's another one that does a good job. It's called Text Alert, and it has Windows, all of those, so it's good. Okay, everybody else?
I do have to say, we have had about, we got Mr. Echo, okay. We've had about the same number consistently, people coming back and learning about it and everything, and I think that is way cool.
Okay,
and
Charles.
I get messages from people
thank
saying,
you very much.
I'm not able to attend, don't forget to send me the stuff and all that good kind of stuff. So even if they're not here, they're letting me know that there's a reason why they're not here.
Good. And to remind you that this was recorded and it'll be given to Judy. Judy will clean it up, post it for your viewing only, and then later on it'll be public. So if you have people who are interested in Linux and couldn't be in the workshop, they can go back and start with video 1, 2, 3, and 4 and learn everything that you learned. So Bud, one last question from you or comment?
No, I just, you just gave a website link, something alert. Could you repeat that name again?
Oh, Tech Support Alert.
Tech, C-E-C-H?
Correct, and it does Windows, Mac, and Linux, and rates them. But I'm thinking this Linux Lite is, or Linux Linux Links is going to be one of the newest ones that are going to be one to watch.
Thank you. You guys did a great job, by the way.
Well, thank you. All right, everybody, stay safe and have a good holiday. We'll see you after Christmas with Bill. We'll see you after the new year with a whole bunch of other stuff. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for everything. Have a good one.
Bill, always thank you for your help. We'll see you in 2 weeks and we'll
Not a
trade
problem,
places.
John. Not a problem.
You'll do the presentation.
You did a good job. It was great.
And I'll definitely see you Sunday afternoon.
Oh, yeah. I'll be looking forward to it.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Good night, or
Bye.
goodbye.